This is Zettelcast, brought to you by readers, writers, thinkers, and teachers from LiLLiPub, along with our partners in thought, our Zettelkastens. In this show, we share discoveries that our Zettelkastens have shown us.
There you go.
And compare notes on how we're using this marvelous invention in our creative work. Thank you for joining us.
All right, book.
Let's do it again.
All right.
Episode 76. Can I quote you? Welcome, everyone, to episode 76 of the Zettelcast. I'm Julianne, your host, and what we're going to be talking about today is quotation and how we collect quotes, how we use them in our work. And for me, quotations don't necessarily, they're not necessarily limited to the wise sayings of famous people that were written down in books, right? And why is that my definition? Because if you want me to quote lines of my favorite movies, I got you. And I'll find all sorts of ways that they fit into this scenario or that scenario. But do I have a ready compilation of quotes that have inspired me? No. And one of the reasons that this is interesting to me is because of Roanoke, the Roanoke Project. The entrance to the henge, which is a gigantic physical memory palace that is built collaboratively by all the denizens of the planet. The entrance, which they refer to as the EP, which is short for Epiphany Taffy, which is a combination of epiphanies and epitaphs. And there are lots of little bitty stones and rocks where various quotations are displayed in the Epiphany Taffy. And you sort of get with one in order to establish your mental state before you enter the henge. And I have referred to exactly one of those. But in the reference, I referred to the fact that there are thousands. And so I was tempted in coming up with our topic for today to ask my co-authors for quotes for the Epiphany Taffy. And I do want that, but I think more important, I want to know, what's your process? So my process is nothing to write home about. But I will start off with a quote that I happen to have on a bib card. And it's from a book by Shinzen Young, The Science of Enlightenment, How Meditation Works. And the quote that I have on my bib card here is, sometimes we have to be satisfied with wisdom to the level of just remembering someone's words. Which, having it imprisoned in a bib card is not the best way to be able to call such a quote to mind. So, I'm actually just going to lead off and say, I don't have a comprehensive strategy for collecting quotes. And it's not that it's hard to go collect quotes from other people who have collected them. I mean, I grew up in a house that had Bartlett's book of famous quotations, and there are sites where you can go get quotes. Those are compiled by other people. They tend to be compiled from famous people. And so there's nothing wrong with that, but that's really very much a secondhand strategy in my view. So, who wants to go with a better way of doing this?
Well, I don't know about a better way. And I missed a little bit of your what you said. Um, but in my Scott Schiffer, a couple of 3, 4 months ago, one of his newsletters focused on the wisdom of collecting literary gems. And that particular newsletter, not all of them resonate with me, but that one did. And so I started um, collecting literary gems. And and how do I define literary gems? Well, whatever strikes me. I'm
Yeah.
reading along or I hear something, whether I'm out in public or watching, some YouTube, whatever I'm doing, however it comes into my world. If it strikes me and I've got a bib card near or a card, an index card near, then I'll jot it down and the source. So that's where this category in my collection has come from. Quote slash lit gems. That's what they are. Uh, and the I was surprised to find out how many quotes I have from Shane Paris. Shane Paris is a guy his newsletter is called Farnham Street, and he's just popping up in my stuff. All just um, keeps popping up. And one of the things that he said was actually he was quoting somebody else. He was quoting Dr. Orenson Sweat Martin, or Martin. I'm sorry, Martin. And he said, the beginning of a habit is like an invisible thread, but every time we repeat the act, we strengthen the strand, add to it another filament until it becomes a great cable and binds us irrevocably in thought and act.
Hmm.
So it's like, yeah, because I'm very interested in how habits are formed and how malleable they might be. I mean, are they really, is it a ratio of how many times you've done it equals the strength of it? And so the more you've done it, the harder it is to pivot from that if you need to? Or is there some kind of, I don't know, sword that will slice through the Gordian knot? What, you know, how how does this work? So I'm very interested in habits. So that's where that comes from. So
How do you have that indexed? So if you knew, I want to find that quote about habits, what would you do?
it, right now I can only go to the to the blob that says quote slash lit gem and just leaf through and find it. Now, of course, the larger it gets, the more problematic that particular way of doing things becomes.
Hmm.
So it needs to be sliced up and indexed for sure, for sure. But that's another one of my things that I battle with. Is time, organization, time and clocks. They just, I'm such a pantser that it's sometimes trips me up, you know. So I don't know.
Well, it's a habit of indexing in a way, right? And I'm not saying that indexing is the way to do it. It's just like, how would you put your finger on that?
but
particular
that's a
quote.
proven way. That's a proven way of being able to put your finger on it right away and not waste time looking for it. So the task can be done in 2 seconds if it's properly categorized versus what's called how important you think the thing is, but it could be 2 hours, you know. So
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I love the quote that you shared too.
yeah.
Kathleen, what do you have to add?
Oh, well, I'm going to add some examples. I love quotes, and like you, I do not confine my quotes to famous remarks of famous people. In fact, when I was looking for some good quotations, the card that I happened to pull is Q.js_Q, quotes from Julianne Scherer, which I've been collecting since August of 2024. And so when I've got a card like this for every member of the Zettelcast, because you always say wonderful things. And it, I love, for instance, the oldest quote I have from you, Julianne, is if your ideas are not on the cards, how could it possibly be your second brain? I love that one. I could quote all of them, but they're so I also don't require that I necessarily am going to use a quote. But I do like to gather them because what I find is having written them down when I'm working, and that's what you ask also is how do you use them when you're working?
Yeah.
One of them will come to mind, and I know it's you that said it. So then I just pull my out of my bib box, I pull the quote card. This is a bibliography card that I have for you, and I just scan down it and find the quote. Sometimes quotes do come from books. And am I reading, for example, this morning, I'm I'm reading two books by the same author that are full of quotable sayings. And it's very germane for my current um, research interest that is motivating me right now. So when I get a quote from a book that I want to capture, the method that I use is I write it in blue ink. When I'm paraphrasing the book, I write it in black. When something in the book triggers a thought that sparks something of my own thinking, I write it in purple. That way, when I look at the card, I know, oh, that wasn't in the book. That's what this quote made me think. And the blue is the quote, and I always include the page number. Now, this quote might well turn into a main card. And if the quote becomes a main card when I'm going back through my bib notes when I'm done with the book or when I'm done with the reading for the day, I'll on my bib card, on my main card, I have a discipline that I insist upon. And sometimes it's hard because these quotes are wonderful and they say everything perfectly. That's why you grab them. But it's still very, very important to paraphrase what was said, to put it in your own words, because if you can't put it in your own words, you haven't really understood what was said. So even though I love the quote, I will put it in my own words on the front of the bib card and put my own reaction, which of course is in my own words.
You
And
mean
then
the main
because
card?
on my main card, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. So I paraphrase it on the main card, add my reaction on the main card, add the tagline on the main card. And then because that quote is so marvelous, I put a star under near the upper right corner, upper left corner, turn it over, and then I write the quote on the back of the main card. If it's that delightful a quote, I will enjoy writing it once more. But that way I get the best of both worlds. I've got the quote handy and I know that I understand it. So, so the other thing that I'm doing very rapidly now is because of you, Julianne, because of your wonderful system whereby I can log a main card that I have not yet indexed, um, I can immediately place the card because it doesn't turn out to be a giant project now.
Yeah.
It's not a giant commitment. I find its number, file the card, write its tagline right on the page, and now I've got six of them build up. Oh, it's time to be logging them. And I find that I'm making them across dates more now that I do it this way, instead of making it, okay, well, I'm going to sit down now and make main cards out of what I've read for the past week or whatever. So they're not as clumpy.
Yeah.
They're more spread out in time. And I'm also finding therefore I'm being more selective.
Mm.
My biggest challenge with quotes came in the very first book that I read to work with my Zettelkast. When my Zettelkasten was a little baby Zettelkasten. And it was I'm not sure I'm pronouncing the name right, Sertalange, The Intellectual Life. And he is such a wordsmith that I was making card after card after card after card after card. I must have made 200 cards off the book. And um, and that was also what taught me the lesson that no, you really want to do that onto bib cards because you end up having five cards that where he's building up and building up and building up, and then he makes his smashing point. So now you've got five cards where one would have sufficed.
Mm.
That lesson taught me that I do want to take the step of making the bib card. And the other reason I want to make the step of taking the bib card is now that when I'm done reading these books, these two books that I've got going that are giving me so much, I can effectively reread the book by pulling the bib cards. And if I've written something there that over the passage of time is now fuzzy, well, there's the page number. So I know that Victoria does it differently because I've read it in her book. She only makes a word or two. And
Ah.
what she wants her bib card to tell her is, what pages am I going to want to go back to?
Ah.
And the word or two is, why did you want to go back to that page? But everything is centered on the idea that you're going to pull that book out and you're going to plan to read it again. I don't plan that way because I've moved on to something else. I don't have a tight body. There's so many books I want to read that I would like to be able to review a book very, very briefly. So my bib notes are more extensive. I want to 2 years from now, if I pick up that card, I want to be able, for the most part, to be able to understand what I excerpted from that book and only rarely have to go back to the book to have it make sense. That's my method.
So, a couple of follow-up questions. One, just from a practicality, if if I had asked the original question, give me some quotes that you would like to see in the Epiphany Taffy.
Mhm.
What would you have done?
I can tell you exactly what I would do. I would go to my author box, and recently, not within the past year, I added a title index, which I've always wanted to do. Here's my, let's see if I can here's my title index. And what I would do with my title index is I would flip over to the letter Q, and there in the letter Q, I would find a collection of title cards for all of the bib cards that I have that are quotes of individual people. So these are going to be the ones, these are disembodied quotes in the sense that they're not quotes that I got while reading a book. They're quotes that I got while listening to somebody, interviewing somebody, talking to somebody, maybe from a podcast where I didn't see any need to make a whole bib card for the podcast, but there was one key quote. So that's how I give you your quotes.
But that would limit your sources to people you are not, it would segregate it from the quotes that you have captured from books.
Yes, but if I also wanted the quotes that I really wanted to capture from the books, then I could go back to, for instance, Sertalange, as I mentioned, pull out the bib card number, and because I know I got a gazillion quotes there, and and get them from that source as well. But I
Yeah.
have to do that author by author.
Right. Right.
Then there's some guys that are going to be perfect for that purpose, like Feynman. He's going to be one. Uh, the character of physical law is going to have some really good quotes in it. So I'd have to run mentally through who are my most quotable authors that I've read.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Vincent Shaw is another one that's real good. So I would have to, run through my memory for that.
Right.
But
Right.
that makes me interesting. Maybe I should have a quotable, quotable people. Maybe I should if I'm reading a book that has some especially good quotes, maybe I should make a separate card that's a quote card from the book.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it all depends on how you intend to use it.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think I would have even wondered about this problem had I not realized, well, I'm writing a book and there are quotations at least alluded to in this book. It doesn't, you certainly read a lot of books, and some of our authors in LiLLiPub also have this practice where every chapter begins with a quote.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, what would you do for that? There's another spiritual book that I read a few years ago, and the author was answering a question from. He also has a YouTube channel. His name is Angelo DeLullo, by the way, and his book is called "Awake, It's Your Turn," and it's full of wonderful quotes by diverse people. But he revealed that his practice was he wrote the whole book, and then he just spent like an afternoon looking in other people's collections of quotes,
Uh-huh.
and he found lots of them that fit,
Yeah.
which is I mean there's absolutely nothing wrong with that except it's that it's a secondary source of secondary source of secondary source, you
Oh,
know.
yeah. Yeah.
It didn't the implication that the quote in some way inspired the chapter is broken there.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's more like a label or something. Um, you do you all have Kindles or have you had Kindles where you get a Kindle book and you're reading in the Kindle book reader and there's the feature where it shows you 8,402 people have highlighted this phrase.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
And
yeah.
my reaction to that was, cool, how do I turn that off?
Yeah.
Mm,
I don't want 8,402 people telling me what I should care about in this book.
mm.
I read
That's
from the
just me.
original Kindle that did not have that feature and does not support it.
Yeah, well, you can turn it off too, but
Yeah.
it's like you have to go and say, "How do I turn that off?"
Well, if I may speak to your first question on the actual role of the quote,
Uh-huh.
because that's something that came up again in this quote that I had from this morning. And it's provocative. And that's one of the if a quote is going to if I'm going to capture a quote, it's probably because it made me write in purple after it.
Yeah. Nice. Not only blue, but purple.
Purple, yes. So if I have to grab my purple pen after reading a quote, that's probably a good quote in my book. So in this one is, as individual reasoning has increasingly become in many parts of the earth the arbiter of what can and should be accepted as true, understanding has increasingly become essential to faith.
Mm.
So I immediately, boing, I went in two directions. So I had to quickly grab one and then the other because my my brain is only fledglingly being able to handle with two ideas at once. I'm getting better at parking one so I can explore the other, but it's still a challenge for me. So it drove me in two directions immediately. First of all, what has been essential in the past to faith?
Mm.
And so I thought, well, at first I thought, well, what about in the Middle Ages? where they began to make these soaring cathedrals with the gorgeous stained glass and the high ceilings. And you could picture peasants coming from their hovels, where maybe they had two stools and a table for the grown-ups, and the kids sat on the dirt floor. And then they come to the church. Then what would be essential to faith wouldn't be that they went through this path of reasoning and deduced this or that was true. What would they would step into a whole nother world. And with it, the promise of, you think this is great? Wait till you get to heaven. The stepping stone of conquest. There's an inference, experiential inference that,
Hmm.
whoa, we are moving towards the inexpressibly beautiful. Fine, but what was it that was essential in the early church? When they were hiding in the catacombs or hiding in the back rooms of people's houses, knowing that if somebody broke down the door, they were going to get fed to the lions.
Hmm.
What was essential to them? But so I stopped there because you could go forever on that road. And I went to the next thing that I had parked and managed to get back to. With and given that more and more and more, increasingly, over many parts of the earth, presumably including our part of the earth, the arbiter of what can and should be accepted as true is considered to be the individual reason. So then, we if that is indeed true, then look at what is happening nowadays to destroy our power to reason.
Yeah.
Cortisol overload damages the reasoning centers of the brain first. If you live in chronic cortisol overload, your power to reason diminishes. And when that's been crushed, your frontal lobes start to shrink. So, what causes you to be in cortisol overload? Danger, anger, outrage. Well, what do you get when you get on social media these days? Unless you're very, very careful and selective, danger, anger, outrage.
Yeah.
So we are pushing people to spend their lives in cortisol overload at the same time as we're telling them your brain and your reasoning are the only arbiters of truth. How's that going to work?
Yeah.
So that to me is a good quote.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so how
Yeah.
will I use that? That's going to be, it's going to be a main card. It's this morning, so I haven't made the main card for it yet. But it will, besides being a main card, it's going to sit in my mind as I explore other things. And this author that I'm studying so intensely was brought to me by True Shields. The author is Anna Wierzbicka, and I'm reading two books by hers, Imprisoned in English and What Christians Believe, the story of God and people in minimal English. She is an anthropological linguist, born in Poland and migrated at some stage in her life to Australia. So she had to completely move from one language to another. And she's all published in English. So she's very conscious of linguistic differences. And she's a proponent of a school of thought that works for natural linguistic meta-language, which is to dissolve all of language down into a very small set of around 60 different words that exist in virtually every language and have are understandable by virtually every native speaker of their language. They're the minimal vocabulary that every human has. And then she takes very complex thoughts and breaks them down and down and down and down until they've been expressed in this minimal language. And one of the things that she contends is that we do not get greater precision by more and more technical, precise terminology that people don't even know what that means. we actually gain clarity by breaking it down in this way. And not only that, we could take phrases that we just ploof, 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 and don't even think about, and we can defamiliarize ourselves with those phrases and actually let what they're saying sink in.
Interesting.
And it's absolutely fascinating. And the books that I'm reading from her, I'm working with the character traits. Well, the character traits were mostly delineated it goes down through the centuries from Aristotle and very much through Aquinas in the Middle Ages to positive psychology in the present, have been studied literally for millennia. And a lot of the language comes out of the language that's common to theology. And so she has a lot that's very, very helpful in that regard. And one of the terms that just absolutely jumped out at me, she talks about, for instance, the simple thing, the start of the creed, which Christians worldwide profess, I believe in God the Father Almighty, is the way it starts. Well, what does Almighty mean? And does Almighty mean the same thing in every language? Well, the creed was originally written in Greek. And in Greek, the word was not almighty, but pantocrator. And pantocrator, and I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, has the meaning that can only be expressed in English as the word, when the word God's will goes out into the world, it accomplishes what it intended.
That's very different from our notion of almighty.
Almighty. Yeah, almighty seems almost willful. He can do
Like
whatever he
big
wants.
boss. Yeah.
Yeah, big boss. It's phenomenally, fundamentally different.
Yeah.
And if that's line one of the creed, maybe we do need a more simplified interpretation. For example, there is someone not like people. This someone is someone above people. This someone is above everything. This someone is now, always was, always will be. This someone is everywhere. There is no one else like this someone. God is this someone. People can't see God. At the same time, people can know some things about God. They can know these things because God wants it. And it goes on, okay, and it continues, and it breaks the whole, it's it's faithful to what's said, but it breaks it down and breaks it down and breaks it down until you get just these simple, simple words
And that is
that,
the creed as
and
she
yeah, this
takes it
whole
back
thing
to
as it
the,
goes is the creed. Yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah. If or he, how here's that Almighty turns out to be, if God wants something to happen, it can happen because of this. Quite different. I love it, and I'm this pertains to Roanoke in two
Oh, yeah.
ways. I'm going to have obviously Teresita, my character who's only requiring language, is going to speak in this vocabulary. And when
Fantastic.
people say things that aren't in that vocabulary and she doesn't understand them, she'll phrase her question in terms of that vocabulary. So it will reflect the story, and it's deeply related to my work on the character traits because I'm trying so hard. There's 28, now 29 of them. They're all they're all distinguishable, yet they're all interrelated in many different complicated ways. How do you express all that? And do you want a more and more esoteric terminology that, okay, here's your glossary, memorize this, and now you can understand the next two pages? Or is the best method a very, very opposite approach of getting down to what's very, very fundamental? So take perseverance. Perseverance is a floppy word in English. It just can mean try hard. It means keep at it. But that,
Stick-to-itiveness. Yeah.
yeah, and all kinds of things. Whereas in the character traits, I have to be very, very careful and say, no, 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 I mean this in a very technical way. I mean, uh, dealing with big, scary things that either could potentially kill you or feel that big that even though they couldn't kill you, you almost feel like they could kill you. That's totally different. And so then I don't know, am I going to build up a language but this this is what's so fascinating me about my next round of study
Yeah.
that I'm engulfed in.
I'm going to see if I can find something. Speaking of Feynman, I went I went looking for the source of that. Feynman has this list of questions.
Oh yeah.
And the place where I looked was figured, well, surely it's here, is in his book, Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman.
Uh-huh. Oh.
And it's not in here.
Ah.
And um, I asked Copilot, which is powered by ChatGPT, what is the source?
Uh-huh.
And it's very interesting. The source is not Feynman at all. It's
Oh.
according to this, the earliest known record of this notion that that he has had 12 questions that he always looked
Yeah.
to was somebody who knew him, who said it about him, and it was written by a third person that somebody said that to. And
Oh.
that earliest, verifiable source, according to Copilot, was 1999.
Oh
And it
my.
became common knowledge because so many productivity oriented people picked it up and said, I'm
Oh,
very happy to give you the trace of all of that.
yeah.
It's like, cool. Well, it explains why I couldn't find it. And it does make sense. I mean, it jibes with what is known and verifiable that Feynman would say and did
Uh-huh.
do. But uh, I thought that was really interesting because, it's the sort of thing that I would want to be able to cite. But, I don't want to cite the guy who said it about the guy. Um, let me see if I can find the thing that I wanted that your True Shields thing made me think about, though. Let's see. It had to do with Japan.
While you're looking, let me just drop this thing that popped into my mind as Kathleen was talking, which is another Paris, a Shane Paris quote that says, avoiding stupidity is easier than seeking brilliance.
Yeah.
So it's like in this decision that I'm going to make, instead of saying, well, what can I do to make this better? You can say, what can I do that's the least harmful?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
go after it the opposite way. Um, but I'm really looking forward to Teresita's growth. Really, really is developing in such a marvelous um
Potentially
almost
pivotal.
well, pivotal is one, but I was going to say pedagogical, actually,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
way, um so that as we read we learn, which is a marvelous thing for any book to do, you know.
Well, it's one corner of the exploration of language that is taking place in the Roanoke Project. So I think it's kind of important to have that viewpoint also
Yes.
included.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I did find what I wanted to share here. So this again is from Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman, Adventures of a Curious Character, written by Richard Feynman. A very fun book to read. I don't know whether this is on audiobook, but it's lots of
Ah.
snippets of, him talking about his life, and he was quite a character. He said, while in Tokyo, I tried to learn Japanese with a vengeance. I worked much harder at it and got to a point where I could go around in taxis and do things. I took lessons from a Japanese man every day for an hour. One day he was teaching me the word for see. All right, he said, you want to say, may I see your garden? What do you say? I made up a sentence with the word that I had just learned. No, no, he said. When you say to someone, would you like to see my garden? You use the first see. But when you want to see someone else's garden, you must use another see, which is more polite. Would you
Oh.
like to glance at my lousy garden? Is essentially what you're saying in the first case. But when you want to look at the other fellow's garden, you have to say something like, may I observe your gorgeous garden? So there's two different words you have to use. Then he gave me another one. You go to a temple and you want to look at the gardens. I made up a sentence, this time with the polite C. No, no, he said. In the temple, the gardens are much more elegant. So you have to say something that would be equivalent to, may I hang my eyes on your most exquisite gardens? Three or four different words for one idea, because when I'm doing it, it's miserable. When you're doing it, it's elegant. I was learning Japanese mainly for technical things, so I decided to check if this same problem existed among the scientists. At the institute the next day, I said to the guys in the office, how would I say in Japanese, I solve the Dirac equation? They said such and so. Okay, now I want to say, would you solve the Dirac equation? How do I say that? Well, you have to use a different word for solve, they say. Why? I protested. When I solve it, I do the same damn thing as when you solve it. Well, yes, but it's a different word. It's more polite. I gave up. I decided that wasn't the language for me and stopped learning Japanese.
Oh,
So that veneer, that cultural veneer is, I mean, it's overlaid on the simple act of seeing, and I'd be very interested to know how this author approaches that.
oh, she would disagree. She
Ah,
would disagree with your statement. She would say, no, 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 no. The culture chooses the words. The culture is not overlaid upon a collection of words. Such you were saying, okay, here I want to be humble, I'm going to grab this word. Here I want to be polite, I'm going to grab this word. Here I want to be reverent, I'm going to grab this word. It's the other way around. The words grow up because you need a different feeling. For us, we express them as, may I rest my eyes upon your magnificent garden for the reverent one, but that's a Japanese word.
well,
That's
how
not a
does it boil
feeling.
down to the 60 essential things?
Okay, yes, because you have to begin, you have to ask the native speaker then when because seeing is the basic word, the word that's common to all, just like Feynman wanted. He just didn't know how to ask his questions. So you have to probe and say, but explain to me, you know, you would have to ask the Japanese person to break those words down into simpler words. And that's in fact how they explore the language across. That's how that's how that's how True Shields in her book that is soon to come out, how to learn any language. It's watch for its release. She's going to have a newsletter too that will lead you through learning a language a year. Shameless plug for True.
Yeah.
But the way to learn them is both through the language and the simple syntax, because you have to thoroughly learn the syntax that goes with each of these words and every possible meaning of these individual words. But then when you want to inquire of a native speaker, you have to make it clear what words you don't understand and ask them to explain it. And then when they explain those words, any words you don't understand, explain until you get down to this basic set. True had happened to have a visit of several weeks, not in Hungary, and was totally not a non-speaker of the Hungarian language. one of that and Finnish, I think, are about the only two languages that are cognates of one another. Very, very different from every other language on earth. But she had a very patient, bilingual um, companion during the process who took her to shops and venues and cafes and all kinds of places where she could talk with native speakers. And she came armed with those, uh, I'm going to say 60, I don't know if that's the exact number of words, and their syntax. And she just asked and asked and asked until she could get the equivalents to each of those. And and then she used them and she spoke in the primitive language to understand the larger words. And when she returned after a stay of weeks, I'm going to say 6 or 8, but I don't recall exactly how long she was there. She returned to the States and scored a master's degree level of understanding of Hungarian.
Wow.
Hmm. She
Yeah.
found a grid.
Yeah, and
Wow.
she also lived in Japan for a number of years and taught English to Japanese people, and she's um, uh, also fluent in that language. So I will ask her on our next meeting, which might be as soon as tomorrow, um, what what she says about this seeing, because seeing is definitely one of those basic words.
You would think
Yeah,
having to do with, one
yeah.
of our five physical senses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's Bisca would definitely say that this is not a veneer. This is intrinsic to how people perceive and conceptualize their world. And she makes a point of things like head. We might think that head, well, everybody's got a word for head, but that turns out not to be true in every language. There's a Malaysian language that has a name for head if you've been beheaded and the head's rolling along the floor. Now head's got a word, but not if it's still on your shoulders.
Well,
They've got words for like scalp and face, but they don't have words for head.
hmm.
But hey, once it's disembodied, okay, now you can put them together.
So I don't know, this is maybe off track, but if they don't have a word for head, do they have words for any limbs?
Oh
You know,
yeah,
they
yeah.
do.
Yeah, but languages are also very interesting in terms of what how much you break down a word. Do you talk about hand, wrist, forearm, elbow, upper arm, or is it hand, arm? You know, where do you break it apart at the joints? Not every language does.
Oh,
And some languages have different words for hold, depending on if you hold it in your hands versus if you hold it in your arms. Those are two
mm.
different verbs. So it's really interesting when it really comes down to anthropological linguistics, which is a field that's interesting to me, but I'm my main thing that I want to get into is transmitting meaning.
Yeah.
Because if you can really break it down into primitives, you've got math.
Your favorite language of all. Mother tongue.
Yeah.
Are you ever tempted to quote math principles or equations or anything that apply to life?
I think about them from time to time, like again this morning. I said, if you can say only one thing, then it's one. And so the only next thing you can say is one, because you only have one. Ah, but now you can go further. You have two. You have the thing that's one, and the thing you can say about the thing, which is one. So you have two. Oh, and having one and two, you have three. Having two and three, you have five. Having five and three and five, you have eight. Having five and eight, you have 13. And thankfully, that's all you need.
And thankfully.
Because, of course, now you've got all the character traits. So what I'm working on for you, Deb, is there's got to be a mechanism by which these character traits can become second skinned. That's the phrase you keep using. You want to know them like your second skin. I want my readers to know them like their second skin. So, well, my work all so far has been about, well, draw the lines carefully, approach each one individually and in total depth, and go out to the corners with each one and be very, very careful. Nope, now you've tiptoed into this one, draw the line safely. But there's a whole nother way of doing it, which is what level 2 is all about. And I believe that in level 2, it should become so organic that it becomes impossible to forget it. It's not like you need a memory technique or a memory palace. The flower itself is the palace.
No, because once the memory palace has done its work, the scaffolding falls away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a memory flower.
Okay.
And we've got it when it's when I can say it down to those minimal words, then I believe I can express it in a way that's going to be the most intelligible, the most transmissible, the most usable way of expressing the ideas in the character traits.
Wow.
Yeah, because in the first iteration, there has needed to be lots of disambiguation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Like when we say humility, we mean something different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are many of
It
those.
doesn't mean you put yourself down
Yeah,
at all. I mean, it has more to do with how you look at other people. Its cousin is magnanimity. Its cousin is not magnificence. It's not a rejection of magnificence. It's an embrace of magnanimity. Very different.
yeah,
And that's what I want to get at is the evolution, where they come out of one another. And that I think will make them second skin.
yeah,
And
because you're
they
tracing the
say,
path.
right. Yeah. And then for the author, when you look at your character who's got this character trait so twisted up, you can follow the path backwards towards the center and come up with a backstory that explains, well, how did he get that one so wrong?
That's what's exciting about Victoria's current twist,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So you have something, you experience something now. How does that relate to the character traits?
Yes.
That's
I'm loving it too, going from the outside in. You got to find the character trait hidden in the story, hidden in the experience. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
So do you want to, so this is an activity happening on LiLLiPub.
Thank you. Yeah.
Maybe you could let us know a little bit more about what the twist is, maybe in a nutshell, and then we can also talk about how people can join in. It's March
What
2nd.
Mm-hmm.
did I do with it? I printed it out, but you know me.
Well, just tell us in your own
You and
words.
paper.
Yeah, where's the paper? But the she said it so succinctly. Can somebody bring that up? Because I'm not sure. I'm not finding it.
Well, you could say it in your own words. I think
Well,
you
well,
did pretty
I mean,
well.
I just said it in my own. You know, the the idea is as you going through your life, what literary gems or quotables do you run across? Things that strike you. Well, within that strikingness, what character trait is waving at you from within that experience?
Yeah.
And
Well put.
Sorry?
Well put, Deb.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and that's where my yesterday's contribution to that collection uh came from. It was that idea of allocated time uh being job one is related to orderliness,
Oh.
the character trait orderliness, and the string or the connection between the two is the idea of specifically placed.
Yeah.
Specifically placed. It's not or deliberately placed. If things are orderly, then there's a place for everything and a thing in its place.
Yeah.
If you really gotten into allocated time, then you know that the next hour of your life is going to be given to X.
Mhm.
And it's not, and you're not just looking around and finding yourself in the next hour of your life. You've stepped into it deliberately
Mhm.
with an objective in mind. And so that's why orderliness and uh, allocated time are a match.
Yeah. Cool. Perfect.
Yes.
So then we're gathering them over here in LiLLiPub. LiLLiPub is where we hang out when we're not here in YouTube land. And look for the Experience Collection Cafe. That's where we're posting them. And a lot of us are using file cards. I keep mine in a little book because I'm crazy about disc binders. And then you just write it up on a little file card. And then a lot of people either write it out in LiLLiPub or take a picture of their file card and post that in LiLLiPub. You'll have a lot of ideas because you'll see all of the ideas that the other people post. And it's a lot of fun to see how people are, where they're going with this challenge. And it's open for the whole month of March. So, and it's only March 2nd. So come on in. I haven't posted mine from yesterday yet either, but I will. And today's as well. So come on
So if
in.
they just go to lillipub.org, they will, what happens then?
Okay, if they go to lillipub.org, you'll get a link to join. You can actually go to members.lillipub.org if you like, but there's a link right there at lillipub.org that'll take you over there. And it's only $8 a month. To join. If you are a purchaser of Victoria Crowder's wonderful new book, Zettelkasten for Fiction Writers, then check your email because your email with your receipt includes a link for a 1 month free trial of LiLLiPub. So don't miss out on that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for the very stimulating conversation that started with quotes and has organically moved to other areas of fascination for us.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
if you like this, please give it a like. Please subscribe for more. We're here every week. Thank you very much.
alrighty. Bye-bye.